Hello family, enjoy this relaxing moment with Charm Stories. Remember to subscribe and share your thoughts in the comment section. Also generously hit the like button cause it means the world to us. Please sit back, relax and enjoy as we dive into the story. The massive chandelier in the living room sparkled faintly in the late afternoon sun. Margaret's presence still lingered in the house, her favorite scent faintly detectable, and her elegant touches evident in every corner. The staff moved quietly, their mourning palpable. The house felt like a shadow of its former self. Victor, dressed in a dark suit, paced by the fireplace. His face was carefully composed, a mask of solemnity that barely concealed the impatience simmering beneath. He glanced at his watch and then at the grand doors leading to the entrance. Amelia and Liam sat on the plush sofa across the room. Amelia, dressed in black, clutched a framed photo of her mother. Her eyes were red and swollen, though her expression was one of simmering anger. Liam sat next to her, silent and withdrawn, his eyes fixed on the floor. Amelia broke the silence, her voice sharp and accusing. "Dad, why did you ask us to gather here? We've barely had time to mourn Mom, and now you're planning something." Victor sighed and turned to face her, his tone steady but firm. "Amelia, I know this has been a difficult time for all of us, but life must go on. Your mother wouldn't have wanted us to wallow in grief forever." Amelia's grip on the photo tightened. "Don't you dare speak for her." Liam looked up, his voice low but steady. "Yeah, Dad. What's going on? Why does it feel like something's about to change?" Victor opened his mouth to respond, but just then, the sound of high heels clicking against the marble floor interrupted him. Amelia and Liam turned toward the entrance as Sandra appeared, her presence striking and out of place. She was dressed in a fitted red dress, her blonde hair perfectly styled, and her expression was one of smug satisfaction. Amelia's eyes widened in shock. "Who is she?" Sandra gave a small, confident smile and stepped further into the room. "Hello, Amelia." "Liam. I'm Sandra." Victor cleared his throat, his voice a touch too controlled. "Sandra will be staying with us for a while." The words hung in the air like a bombshell. Amelia shot to her feet, her voice rising. "Staying with us? Are you out of your mind? Mom's been gone for a week, and you're already—" She choked on the words, her anger overwhelming her. Liam stood as well, though his reaction was more subdued. "Dad, this isn't right. Mom wouldn't." "Enough." Victor's voice cut through their protests. He took a step forward, his gaze hard. "This is my decision. Sandra is important to me, and I expect you both to respect that." Amelia laughed bitterly, her anger spilling over. "Respect? Respect what?" "The fact that you've replaced Mom before the ground over her grave has even settled." Sandra raised a perfectly arched eyebrow. "I understand this is difficult, but perhaps if you gave me a chance." "Don't talk to me," Amelia snapped, her voice icy. "You have no right to be here." The household staff, who had been quietly lingering in the background, exchanged uneasy glances. One of them, an older woman named Mrs. Roberts, stepped forward hesitantly. She had been with the family for decades and felt a fierce loyalty to Margaret. "Sir," Mrs. Roberts said carefully, "with all due respect, this doesn't seem appropriate." Victor turned to her, his expression darkening. "Mrs. Roberts, this is not your concern. You work for me, and I expect you to follow my instructions." Amelia's voice cut through the tension. "Of course it's her concern. She loved Mom like we did. Everyone in this house loved her. Except you, apparently." Victor's jaw tightened, but Sandra placed a hand on his arm, a gesture of both support and possession. "Victor, perhaps we should give them some time to adjust," she said smoothly, though her tone carried a hint of condescension. Amelia shook her head, her voice trembling with emotion. "Time to adjust? To what? To you moving in and pretending like you belong here? This was Mom's house. Her home. You don't belong here." Liam finally spoke up again, his voice firmer now. "Dad, this isn't okay. You can't just bring her here. Mom's memory deserves better." Victor sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "I know this is hard, But I've made my decision. Sandra is staying, and that's final. Amelia stepped closer to him, her eyes blazing. What is wrong with you? Do you even care about Mom? About us? Victor didn't answer. Instead, he turned to Sandra. Let me show you to your room. As Victor and Sandra began to leave, Amelia called after him, her voice breaking. This isn't over, Dad. Not by a long shot. The sound of Victor and Sandra's footsteps faded as they ascended the grand staircase. Amelia sank back onto the sofa, her hands trembling. Liam sat beside her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. I don't trust her, Amelia whispered, her voice tight. Or him. Liam nodded silently, his expression grim. In that moment, the siblings shared an unspoken understanding. They would have to uncover the truth behind their father's actions, no matter what it took. The staff lingered a moment longer, exchanging worried glances before quietly retreating. The once warm mansion now felt cold and hostile, a reflection of the battle brewing within its walls. The once serene mansion had transformed into a battleground. Sandra's presence, with her perfectly styled hair and smug demeanor, felt like a thorn piercing the heart of Amelia and Liam. The siblings, fueled by grief and anger, turned their mourning into rebellion. Sandra walked down the grand staircase, her heels clicking against the polished marble floor. She was dressed in an elegant beige dress, but something was wrong. She paused and frowned. Her dress had a peculiar streak of ink running down the back, visible as she passed the mirrored hallway. Amelia, hiding behind the corner with Liam, stifled a giggle. She didn't notice yet, Amelia whispered. Liam smirked. She will when she meets Dad. Sandra strutted into the living room, where Victor was seated, reviewing documents. He looked up and frowned. Sandra, what happened to your dress? Sandra turned, her expression confused. She looked over her shoulder and gasped. What in the world? This wasn't there before. Amelia and Liam stepped into the room, feigning innocence. Amelia folded her arms. Oh no, Sandra, did you sit on something? That's such a shame. It's such a nice dress. Sandra narrowed her eyes. You two had something to do with this, didn't you? Liam shrugged. We've been in the kitchen all morning. Isn't that right, Amelia? Victor glared at them. Enough. Sandra, go change. And you too. Stay out of trouble. Amelia's smile faded as she watched Sandra leave. She whispered to Liam, this isn't over. Victor had arranged a small garden party for his business associates, hoping to reintroduce normalcy into the household. Sandra, eager to claim her place, seized the opportunity to charm the guests. The siblings had other plans. Sandra was mid-conversation with a prominent investor when a soft plop caught her attention. She looked down, horrified to see a glob of mustard on her pristine white blouse. The guests tried to stifle their amusement as Sandra quickly grabbed a napkin. Oh dear, Amelia said, stepping forward with mock concern, holding a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Mustard is so tricky. It stains everything. Sandra's face flushed with embarrassment. I don't know how this happened. Liam, standing near the refreshment table, called out loudly, guess clumsiness runs in some people. Victor noticed the commotion and walked over, his frustration evident. Sandra, let's get you cleaned up. As Sandra left the party, Amelia leaned toward Liam. 1 point for us. Later that evening, Sandra decided to take a long bath to relax. She lit scented candles and poured in some bath salts, hoping to forget the day's humiliation. Unbeknownst to her, Amelia had swapped the bath salts with powdered food coloring. The moment Sandra sank into the bath, she screamed. Her skin had turned a blotchy shade of green. Victor came running. Sandra. What happened? Sandra pointed to the bath, her voice shaking with rage. It's them. It has to be them. Victor stormed out of the bathroom, finding Amelia and Liam sitting in the library. Enough. I've had it with your childish antics. Amelia looked up from her book. Oh, what did we do now? Don't play innocent, Victor snapped. If this continues, I'll cut you both off. No allowance. No college fund. Nothing. Liam stood, his voice quiet but firm. You'd really choose her over us? Victor glared. This isn't about choosing. It's about respect, and you two are acting like spoiled brats. Amelia placed her book down carefully, meeting her father's gaze. You think we care about the money? Mom left us more than you think. Victor froze, his expression shifting. What are you talking about? Amelia smiled cryptically. You'll find out soon enough. Sandra sat in her room, fuming. Victor entered and sat beside her. I'll deal with them, he promised. Sandra crossed her arms. You'd better. I'm not going to be humiliated like this every day. Down the hall, Amelia and Liam sat in Amelia's room, strategizing. He's going to try harder to stop us, Liam said. Amelia nodded. Let him. Mom left more than just money. She left her strength, her principles, and her fight. We'll protect this house from her. Liam smirked. And from Sandra. The siblings' laughter echoed softly, a stark contrast to the growing tension in the mansion. The suite's floor-to-ceiling windows showcased the glittering city skyline, a view that Sandra had come to associate with Victor's indulgent promises. She lounged on a velvet chaise, her silk robe draped loosely over her shoulders. Victor stood by the minibar, pouring 2 glasses of whiskey. His tie was undone, his shirt slightly rumpled, a stark contrast to his usual polished demeanor. Sandra smirked as she watched him. You seem tense tonight, Victor. Trouble at home. Victor handed her a glass, his sigh heavy. You could say that. Sandra sipped her drink, her eyes narrowing. Let me guess. Margaret. Victor nodded, sinking into the armchair across from her. She's been difficult lately. The treatments are taking a toll. She's tired, irritable, and constantly questioning my every move. Sandra leaned forward, feigning concern. She doesn't trust you? Victor scoffed. She barely looks at me anymore, let alone trusts me. Everything's about her illness. The doctors, the treatments, the endless discussions about her will. He took a long sip of his whiskey. I'm tired, Sandra. Tired of being the dutiful husband while she controls everything. Sandra tilted her head, her lips curving into a sly smile. You're the one who keeps the family afloat, Victor. You deserve better. Victor's eyes met hers, the vulnerability in them momentarily replaced by something darker. She doesn't see it that way. Margaret always had the upper hand. The money, the connections. She built an empire, and I'm just part of the furniture. Sandra moved to sit on the armrest of his chair, her hand lightly grazing his shoulder. You're more than that, Victor. You're ambitious, smart, and capable. It's time you stopped living in her shadow. Victor looked up at her, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. She's worth billions, Sandra. Do you know what it's like to live with someone who reminds you, even without saying it, that they don't need you? Sandra's hand slid down to his. But you can change that, can't you? You're her husband. When the time comes, won't everything be yours? Victor hesitated, then nodded. That's the plan. Once she's gone, the estate, the company, the assets, they'll all be mine. It's what I've earned after years of standing by her side. Sandra's eyes sparkled with greed. And me? Where do I fit into your future, Victor? Victor set his glass down, pulling her into his lap. By my side, Sandra. When this is over, you'll be the one living with me in that mansion. You'll have everything you've ever dreamed of. Sandra smiled, but there was a flicker of doubt in her eyes. And what if Margaret suspects something? Victor shook his head. She doesn't know. She's too focused on herself to notice anything. As long as I keep up appearances, she'll never figure it out. Unbeknownst to Victor, Margaret had already pieced together the truth. Sitting in her private study, she stared at a copy of Victor's hotel bill, Sandra's name prominently listed among the charges. Her expression was calm, but her clenched fists betrayed the storm inside her. She turned to Mrs. Roberts, the family's loyal housekeeper, who stood nearby. How long has this been going on? Margaret's voice was steady but sharp. Mrs. Roberts hesitated before replying. "For at least a year, ma'am. I didn't want to say anything, but I thought you should know." Margaret closed her eyes, taking a deep breath. "Thank you, Roberts. You've done the right thing." The housekeeper shifted uncomfortably. "What will you do?" Margaret opened her desk drawer, pulling out a thick file. "I've already started making arrangements. Victor thinks he's clever, but he's predictable. I won't let him or his mistress take what I've built." Mrs. Roberts nodded, her voice soft. "You're stronger than he realizes." Margaret smiled faintly. "That will be his downfall." Victor and Sandra were sitting on the suite's balcony, champagne glasses in hand. Sandra looked out over the city, her voice dreamy. "Do you think about what it'll be like, Victor? When it's just us?" Victor leaned back in his chair, his expression smug. "I think about it every day. No more hiding, no more pretending. Just freedom." Sandra turned to him, her tone playful. "And power. Don't forget the power." Victor chuckled. "With Margaret gone, the company's board will have no choice but to follow my lead. Her name will still be on the papers, but I'll be the one calling the shots." Sandra laughed softly, leaning closer to him. "And I'll be your queen." Victor's phone buzzed, interrupting the moment. He glanced at the screen and frowned. "It's Margaret." Sandra rolled her eyes. "What does she want now?" Victor sighed. "Who knows? Probably another lecture about something I didn't do right." Sandra placed her hand over his. "You don't have to answer." Victor hesitated but eventually silenced the call. "You're right. I don't." Margaret sat at her desk, her phone resting beside her. She had expected Victor to ignore her call. It confirmed what she already knew: he had fully detached from their life together. She opened her laptop and typed an email to her lawyer. Subject: Urgent changes to my will. Please arrange for an immediate review of my estate. I want to ensure that my children are protected and that certain assets are untouchable under any circumstances. This must remain confidential. We'll meet tomorrow. Margaret leaned back in her chair, her eyes glinting with determination. "Victor," she whispered, "you'll regret underestimating me." The elegant office, adorned with dark wood paneling and leather-bound books, exuded authority. A large oak table dominated the room, surrounded by high-backed chairs. Mr. Caldwell, an older man with sharp eyes and a calm demeanor, sat at the head of the table. His expression was neutral, but there was a subtle weight in his presence. Victor sat confidently, his expensive suit perfectly tailored. He leaned back, exuding arrogance as he occasionally glanced at Sandra, seated beside him. She wore a bright red dress, a sign of her premature celebration. Her hand rested lightly on Victor's, and her expression hinted at smug satisfaction. Across from them sat Amelia and Liam. Amelia's sharp gaze darted between Victor and Mr. Caldwell. Liam sat quietly, his arms crossed, watching the scene unfold with a mixture of curiosity and quiet anger. Victor cleared his throat, breaking the tense silence. "Mr. Caldwell, I think we've waited long enough. Let's get this over with. I have pressing matters to attend to." Amelia frowned. "Pressing matters? Like redecorating the mansion?" Victor shot her a glare. "Don't start, Amelia." Mr. Caldwell raised a hand, his voice calm and professional. "Mr. Hayes, the reading of a will is a solemn occasion. Let's proceed with respect for the deceased." Victor waved dismissively. Of course. Let's proceed." Mr. Caldwell opened the will, the rustle of paper amplifying the tension in the room. He adjusted his glasses and began reading. "I, Margaret Hayes, being of sound mind and body, hereby declare this to be my last will and testament." Victor leaned forward, a smirk tugging at the corner of his mouth. Mr. Caldwell continued, his tone steady. "To my beloved children, Amelia and Liam, I leave my shares in Hayes Industries, my properties, and my investments. These will be divided equally between them." Sandra's smile faltered slightly, and she shot a glance at Victor, who stiffened but quickly regained his composure. Amelia exchanged a quick look with Liam, her suspicion deepening. Mr. Caldwell paused, his gaze flickering toward Victor before continuing. Additionally, a portion of my wealth, including the proceeds from my businesses, will be allocated to the Margaret Hayes Foundation, a charitable organization I established prior to my passing. Victor's smirk disappeared. What foundation? He demanded, leaning forward. Mr. Caldwell glanced at him briefly. The Margaret Hayes Foundation. It was established to support cancer research and aid for underserved communities. Margaret took great care in planning it. Victor's face darkened, but Mr. Caldwell pressed on. Mr. Caldwell's voice grew slightly firmer. To my husband, Victor Hayes. Victor straightened, the smug confidence returning to his face. Sandra placed a hand on his arm, her eyes gleaming with anticipation. Mr. Caldwell picked up an envelope from the table. I leave this letter. The room fell silent. Victor blinked. A letter. Mr. Caldwell placed the envelope in front of him, his expression unyielding. Yes. A letter. Margaret requested it be read privately, but you are free to open it now if you wish. Sandra's face turned pale, her mouth opening and closing wordlessly. This must be a mistake, she stammered. What about the mansion? The assets? She wouldn't leave him with nothing. Amelia couldn't hold back a small, satisfied smile. Looks like Mom had other plans. Victor slammed his fist on the table. This is absurd. Caldwell, I was her husband. I stood by her for years. She wouldn't do this to me. Mr. Caldwell's voice remained calm. Margaret made her wishes explicitly clear. This will was finalized 6 months before her passing, and she left no ambiguity. Sandra turned to Mr. Caldwell, her voice trembling with desperation. What about me? Surely Margaret. She must have left something to acknowledge me. Amelia let out a sharp laugh. You really thought she'd leave something for you? That's rich. Victor glared at her. Watch your tone, Amelia. Amelia leaned forward, her tone cold. Or what? You'll throw another tantrum? Face it, Dad. You gambled everything, and you lost. Sandra looked to Victor for reassurance, but his silence was damning. She clenched her fists, her voice rising. You promised me, Victor. You said we'd have everything. Victor's face turned red. Sandra, calm down. No, I will not calm down. Sandra stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. I've wasted years on you for this? Nothing. Amelia smirked. Guess you should have done your research. Victor, his hands trembling with barely contained rage, ripped open the envelope. His eyes scanned the handwritten note, his expression shifting from anger to disbelief. Victor, he read aloud, his voice cracking. You've always underestimated me. While you were busy plotting behind my back, I was ensuring my legacy would remain untouched by your greed. You thought I didn't know about your affair with Sandra, but I knew everything. And I made sure you'd get exactly what you deserve. Nothing. Consider this a final gift, and may it serve as a reminder of the choices you've made. The room was deathly quiet. Liam finally broke the silence. Looks like Mom knew you better than you thought. Victor's face was pale, his mouth opening as if to argue, but no words came out. Sandra stormed out of the office, her heels clicking furiously against the floor. I can't believe this, she hissed, slamming the door behind her. Victor remained seated, staring at the letter in his hands, his confidence shattered. Amelia and Liam stood, their expressions cold. Amelia turned to Mr. Caldwell. Thank you for honoring Mom's wishes. Mr. Caldwell nodded. Your mother was a remarkable woman. As the siblings left the office, Amelia glanced back at Victor. This isn't just about what Mom left us. It's about what she didn't leave you. Think about that, Dad. Victor said nothing, his silence louder than any outburst could have been. The tension in the room was palpable as Victor unfolded the letter. His hands trembled slightly, though he tried to mask his unease. Amelia and Liam sat quietly, their expressions a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Mr. Caldwell, calm as ever, watched Victor intently from his seat at the head of the table. Victor began reading aloud, his voice steady at first but soon faltering as Margaret's words struck with precision. Victor. I've always known you better than you think. 4 years, I watched you, listened to you, and endured your betrayal in silence. Not because I was blind, but because I needed time to protect what truly mattered, my children and the legacy I built for them. While I was battling cancer, you were busy plotting, whispering secrets to your mistress, and waiting for the day you could claim what you thought was rightfully yours. But you underestimated me, Victor. You saw my illness as weakness, but it was strength that allowed me to act. I've ensured that every penny, every property, and every share I worked for will be safe in the hands of those who will cherish them. Amelia, Liam, and the foundation I established to give back to the world. You, on the other hand, will be left with nothing but the ruins of your lies. You may think this is unfair, but fairness was never your concern when you betrayed me. You will have to live with the consequences of your choices. I built this empire with love, Victor. You built yours on deceit. Love lasts. Lies crumble. The letter was signed with Margaret's name in her elegant handwriting. Victor's hands fell to the table, the letter crumpling slightly in his grip. His face was pale, his jaw clenched tightly as he tried to process the blow. The silence stretched, broken only by Sandra's sharp inhale. Amelia leaned back in her chair, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. So, Dad, what's it like being outsmarted by the woman you underestimated all these years? Victor glared at her, his anger bubbling to the surface. This isn't her doing. This is your doing, yours and Caldwell's. He turned to the lawyer, pointing an accusatory finger. You conspired with her. You manipulated her into writing this damn letter. Mr. Caldwell didn't flinch. His tone remained measured. Mr. Hayes, I am bound by my duty to honor Margaret's wishes. She made these decisions of her own free will. Your accusations are baseless. Victor slammed his fist on the table, making Sandra jump. Don't lie to me. Margaret was sick. She didn't know what she was doing. Amelia stood, her voice rising with anger. How dare you? Mom was more lucid than you'll ever be. She knew exactly what she was doing, and she did it to protect us. From you. Victor rounded on her, his face red. You think you're so clever, don't you? You and your brother, two spoiled brats who wouldn't have anything if it weren't for me. Liam, who had been silent until now, stood as well, his voice low but firm. We wouldn't have anything if it weren't for Mom. She's the one who built everything. Not you. Victor scoffed. Oh, please. You two wouldn't last a day without me. You think you can handle the pressure, the responsibilities? You're just kids. Amelia stepped closer to him, her eyes blazing. We're stronger than you think, Dad. Stronger than you ever were, and that's because of Mom. She raised us to stand up to people like you. Sandra, who had been silent, finally spoke, her voice trembling. Victor, do something. You can't just let them take everything. Victor turned to her, his frustration boiling over. And what do you suggest I do, Sandra? Fight a dead woman? Margaret planned this perfectly. Sandra's face twisted in anger. You promised me a life of luxury. Now what? Am I supposed to leave with nothing? Amelia laughed coldly. Yes, Sandra. You get exactly what you deserve. Nothing. Sandra glared at her. You little... Mr. Caldwell cleared his throat, his voice commanding the room. That's enough. This meeting is about the will, not personal attacks. Margaret's wishes have been carried out. Any disputes can be taken to court, though I assure you they won't succeed. Victor collapsed back into his chair, the fight draining from his body. He stared at the crumpled letter in his hands, his expression a mix of rage, humiliation, and defeat. She hated me, he muttered, almost to himself. She really hated me. Amelia shook her head. No, Dad. She didn't hate you. She pitied you. There's a difference. Victor looked up at her, his eyes filled with resentment. You think this is over, Amelia? You think you've won? Amelia smiled faintly. It's not about winning, Dad. It's about justice. Mom made sure of that. Victor sat silently as Amelia and Liam walked out of the office, their heads held high. Sandra stormed after them, muttering curses under her breath. Mr. Caldwell began gathering his papers, glancing at Victor one last time. Mr. Hayes, he said quietly, Margaret loved you once. Perhaps, if you reflect on her words, you'll understand why she made these choices. Victor didn't respond. His gaze fixed on the letter as the weight of his actions finally began to sink in. The office door closed, leaving him alone with his regret and the ruins of his lies. Sandra's heels clicked furiously against the marble floor as she stormed into the grand hall. Her face was flushed with anger, her hands clenched into fists. Victor followed her, his voice rising in desperation. Sandra, will you calm down for a second? Victor called after her. Sandra spun around, her eyes blazing. Calm down? You want me to calm down? After everything you've put me through. Amelia and Liam, standing on the staircase, watched the argument unfold. They exchanged a glance, their expressions a mixture of satisfaction and curiosity. Sandra jabbed a finger at Victor's chest. You promised me a life of luxury, Victor. You said we'd have everything once Margaret was gone. You lied. Victor raised his hands defensively. I didn't know, Sandra. How could I? Margaret kept this all a secret. Sandra cut him off, her voice dripping with contempt. Don't you dare blame her. You're the one who dragged me into this mess. You said it was foolproof. You said she wouldn't see it coming. Amelia smirked from her perch on the staircase. Turns out Mom was smarter than both of you. Sandra shot her a venomous look. Shut up, little girl. This is between me and your father. Liam stepped forward, his voice cold. Don't talk to her like that. You're the one who doesn't belong here. Sandra turned back to Victor, her anger boiling over. You've ruined my life, Victor. Do you know how much I sacrificed for you? My time, my reputation. All for this? For nothing. Victor pinched the bridge of his nose, his patience wearing thin. Sandra, I told you, I didn't know Margaret would do this. We can fix it. We'll find a way. Sandra let out a bitter laugh. Fix it? How, Victor? Sue the children? Fight over scraps in court? Do you even hear yourself? She began pacing, her eyes darting around the room. Her gaze landed on a vase perched on a side table. It was an antique, one of Margaret's favorites. Sandra marched over, picked it up, and held it aloft. What are you doing? Victor asked, alarmed. Sandra sneered. Taking what I deserve. Without hesitation, she smashed the vase on the floor. The sound of shattering porcelain echoed through the hall. Amelia's voice rang out. That belonged to Mom. Sandra shrugged, her tone mocking. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break something important? Liam stepped forward, his fists clenched. You're crossing a line. Sandra ignored him, turning to Victor. You're pathetic. All those years pretending to be the loyal husband. And for what? To end up with nothing. You're a joke. Victor's face turned red, his voice rising. Sandra, stop. You're making a scene. Sandra laughed bitterly. A scene? This entire house is a scene. A shrine to a woman you couldn't even be faithful to. Sandra stormed past Victor, heading toward the grand staircase. She grabbed a decorative bowl from the foyer table, a gold-framed painting from the wall, and a few other valuables she could carry. Victor followed her, his voice pleading. Sandra, don't do this. We can work this out. Sandra whirled around, clutching the painting. Work this out? You're delusional, Victor. I'm done with you. Amelia and Liam blocked her path at the foot of the stairs. Amelia's voice was icy. You're not taking another step. Sandra glared at her. Get out of my way, princess. I've earned this. Amelia didn't move. You've earned nothing. Everything in this house belonged to Mom. You don't get to walk away with her things. Victor stepped between them, raising his hands. Everyone, just stop. Sandra, leave the stuff and go. Don't make this worse than it already is. Sandra gave him one last contemptuous look. You're not worth it. She dropped the painting on the floor, the frame cracking on impact, and stormed out the front door. The sound of her car engine roared to life, and moments later, she was gone. Victor stood in the middle of the grand hall, his shoulders slumped. The once proud businessman now looked like a man defeated. Amelia descended the staircase slowly, her voice sharp. Well, that went about as well as expected. Victor turned to her, his eyes filled with frustration. Don't start, Amelia. I've had enough for one day. Liam joined her, his expression cold. You've had enough? What about us? We've had to put up with your lies and manipulation for years. Now you're finally getting what you deserve. Victor sighed heavily, rubbing his temples. I'm still your father. Amelia crossed her arms. A father who betrayed our mother. A father who brought her into our home. Don't expect any sympathy from us, Dad. Victor looked at them, his face pale. You don't understand. I made mistakes, but I was trying to... To what? Liam interrupted. Steal Mom's legacy? Pretend you built something you didn't? Save it, Dad. We're done listening to your excuses. Victor slumped into a nearby chair, burying his face in his hands. The grand hall, once filled with life and warmth, now felt cold and empty. Amelia and Liam turned and walked away, leaving him alone with his thoughts. As the sound of their footsteps faded, Victor looked up, staring at the shattered vase on the floor. It was a perfect metaphor for his life, a legacy built on lies, now in ruins. The mansion, once a vibrant symbol of wealth and success, now felt lifeless. The staff had dwindled to a skeleton crew, and Victor spent most of his days alone in the study. The opulent decor seemed out of place, as if mocking his dwindling resources. Victor sat at his desk, staring at the financial documents spread before him. His hands trembled as he flipped through page after page of bills, overdue notices, and statements. Each one was a stark reminder of his helplessness. Margaret's ironclad safeguards had rendered him powerless. Amelia and Liam walked past the open study door. Amelia paused and glanced in, her expression unreadable. Still trying to make sense of it, Dad? Victor looked up, his face pale and drawn. I don't need your commentary, Amelia. Liam leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Funny, isn't it? You spent years plotting to take everything, and now you're left with nothing. Victor's voice rose, tinged with desperation. I still have this house. Amelia tilted her head. For now. But how long before you sell it too? Victor slammed his hand on the desk. Get out. Amelia smirked. Gladly. She and Liam walked away, their quiet laughter echoing through the empty halls. A week later, a series of luxury cars rolled up to the mansion. Not for a party or a gala, but for an estate sale. Victor, standing near the entrance, watched as strangers strolled through the house, pointing at paintings, antique furniture, and sculptures. One woman, holding a clipboard, approached him. Mr. Hayes, the buyers are asking about the grand piano. Shall we include it in the auction? Victor's jaw tightened. The piano stays. But, I said it stays, he snapped. The woman backed away, muttering under her breath. From the staircase, Amelia and Liam observed the scene. Amelia leaned toward her brother. He's holding on to scraps, like that piano's going to save him. Liam shrugged. It's all he has left. Let him cling to it. Later that evening, Victor attended a networking event, hoping to salvage some connections. He walked into the room with his usual air of confidence, but the whispers began almost immediately. That's Victor Hayes, someone murmured. He lost everything after his wife's will was read, another voice said. Victor approached a former business associate, Richard Coleman, who had always been eager to share a drink or a cigar. Richard, good to see you. Richard turned, his smile faltering. Victor. I didn't expect to see you here. Victor forced a smile. Still keeping busy. Thought I'd stop by, catch up with old friends. Richard shifted uncomfortably. Look, Victor, I've heard about your situation. It's really unfortunate, but I have to be careful who I associate with. You understand. Victor's smile faded. Careful? Richard, we've known each other for years. Richard glanced around, clearly eager to end the conversation. Times change. I hope things work out for you. He walked away, leaving Victor standing alone. Back at the mansion, Victor sat in the dimly lit living room, nursing a glass of whiskey. The estate sale had brought in some money, but it wasn't enough. Bills were piling up, and his reputation was in shambles. Amelia entered the room, her expression softer than usual. She sat across from him, watching him for a moment before speaking. You look tired. Victor sighed, rubbing his temples. What do you want, Amelia? I was going to ask you the same thing, she replied. What's your plan now, Dad? Keep selling things until there's nothing left. Victor's voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know. Amelia leaned forward, her tone sharp. Mom didn't just protect her money. She protected us. You have nothing left because you spent your life trying to take instead of build. Maybe it's time you learned what it means to have nothing. Victor looked at her, his eyes filled with a mixture of anger and despair. You don't understand what it's like to lose everything. Amelia stood, her voice firm. Neither did Mom, but she made sure we'd never have to. That's the difference between you and her. Victor was left alone in the darkened room, the glass of whiskey untouched beside him. The sound of a clock ticking filled the silence, marking the time slipping away. He looked around the once grand mansion, now echoing with emptiness, and finally realized the full weight of Margaret's words. You will be left with the ruins of your lies. The Foundation's office was modern and bustling, with glass walls and bright natural light streaming in through floor-to-ceiling windows. The name Margaret Hayes Foundation was displayed prominently at the entrance, a reminder of the woman whose vision had brought the organization to life. Amelia stood at the head of a conference table, addressing a team of staff and advisors. Charts and documents were spread before her, detailing funding plans and outreach programs. Liam sat beside her, listening intently as she spoke. Our primary focus for this quarter, Amelia said, her voice calm but firm, will be expanding our cancer research grants. Mom wanted to support innovative treatments, and I think we should prioritize the proposals from smaller labs that often get overlooked. One of the advisors nodded. That's a great idea, Amelia. Smaller labs often bring fresh ideas but lack funding. Liam leaned forward. We should also look at the outreach programs for women in abusive relationships. The shelter we funded last year is already at capacity. We need to increase support there. Amelia smiled at her brother. Agreed. Let's allocate additional funds to that project and consider partnering with more shelters across the country. The team nodded, taking notes as the siblings led the discussion with confidence and purpose. Weeks later, Amelia and Liam attended a charity gala organized to celebrate the Foundation's milestones. The room was filled with donors, beneficiaries, and members of the press. The siblings, dressed in elegant formal attire, moved through the crowd, graciously accepting praise and answering questions. A journalist approached them, microphone in hand. Amelia, Liam, the work you've done with the Foundation is incredible. What motivates you to continue your mother's legacy? Amelia smiled warmly, her tone sincere. Our mother was an extraordinary woman who believed in giving back. She taught us that true wealth lies in how much you can help others. We're just trying to honor her memory by continuing the work she started. Liam added, her battle with cancer showed us how important it is to fund research and provide support for those in need. She never gave up, and neither will we. The journalist nodded, clearly impressed. And what about the programs for women in abusive relationships? That seems like a personal cause for your family. Amelia's expression softened. Mom believed that everyone deserves a safe space, a second chance. She wanted to empower women to rebuild their lives. It's an honor to make that vision a reality. As the interview concluded, the audience erupted into applause. The siblings exchanged a small smile, proud of what they were achieving. Meanwhile, Victor's downfall had become fodder for tabloids. Headlines blared. Once a power couple, Victor Hayes falls from grace. Scandal and betrayal, the true story behind the Hayes family feud. Photographs of Victor, disheveled and weary, accompanied the articles. One particularly scathing piece detailed his estate sale and his public humiliation at a recent event. In the same newspapers, Amelia and Liam's philanthropic work was celebrated with glowing articles and photographs of their gala appearances. The stark contrast between their rise and Victor's fall was impossible to ignore. Later that evening, back at the mansion, Amelia and Liam sat in the living room, reviewing reports from the gala. The house felt warmer than it had in years, no longer overshadowed by the tension of their father's schemes. Amelia looked up from her laptop. "I think tonight went well. We've secured enough funding to expand the shelters and start a new research grant." Liam nodded, leaning back in his chair. "Mom would be proud." Amelia smiled, a hint of sadness in her eyes. "I think so too. I just wish she could see it." Liam reached over, squeezing her hand. "She does, Amelia. In a way, everything we're doing is her seeing it. She made this possible." They sat in silence for a moment, reflecting on how far they'd come. In a small, dimly lit apartment on the other side of town, Victor sat alone. The once proud businessman was now surrounded by the remnants of his former life: faded photographs, a tarnished watch, and a half-empty bottle of whiskey. He picked up a tabloid featuring Amelia and Liam at the gala. The headline read, "Margaret Hayes Foundation flourishes under sibling leadership." Victor's hand trembled as he tossed the paper aside. The laughter and applause from their interviews seemed to echo in his head, drowning out the silence of his apartment. The next morning, Amelia and Liam returned to the foundation office, ready to tackle another day of work. As they entered, the staff greeted them with admiration and respect. For the first time in a long while, the Hayes legacy was no longer tarnished by betrayal and greed. It was a beacon of hope and change. Meanwhile, Victor remained in the shadows, the weight of his choices heavier than ever. Victor, gaunt and visibly aged, shuffled up the stone steps of the mansion that had once been his home. His clothes were worn, and his once proud demeanor had been replaced by desperation. He hesitated at the grand front door before knocking. Amelia opened the door, her expression hardening the moment she saw him. "What are you doing here?" Victor raised his hands in a placating gesture. "Amelia, please. I just want to talk." She crossed her arms. "Talk about what, Dad? How you ruined everything. How you betrayed Mom." Liam appeared behind her, his stance defensive. "You've got nothing to say that we want to hear." Victor's voice broke. "I know I've made mistakes. I know I hurt all of you. But I've lost everything. I have no one." Amelia's eyes narrowed. "And whose fault is that? You chose greed over love. You chose her over us." Victor flinched at the mention of Sandra, his shoulders slumping. I thought I could have it all. But I was wrong." He stepped closer, his voice pleading. "I just want a chance to make things right. Please." Liam shook his head. "You can't undo what you did. Mom gave you love and loyalty, and you threw it away. You don't deserve our forgiveness." Victor's eyes filled with tears. "I'm still your father." Amelia's voice was cold. "A father protects his family. You destroyed ours. Go, Dad. We've moved on, and you should too." Victor looked at them one last time, their faces hard and unyielding. He turned and walked away, his figure hunched, defeated. Months later, a large crowd gathered outside a gleaming new hospital wing. The entrance was adorned with flowers and a large banner that read, "The Margaret Hayes Oncology Center, a legacy of hope." Amelia and Liam stood at the podium, addressing the attendees. Both were poised and confident, a reflection of their mother's spirit. Amelia began, her voice steady but full of emotion. Our mother believed that true wealth lies in what you give to others. This hospital wing represents her commitment to love, care, and hope for a better future. Liam stepped forward. This is more than a building. It's a promise to continue her work, to fight for those who need help the most, and to honor her memory in every way we can. The crowd applauded as the siblings pulled back the curtain to reveal a bronze plaque mounted on the wall. The inscription read, "Margaret's legacy, built on love, not greed." Across the street, hidden in the shadows, Victor watched the ceremony unfold. His face was streaked with tears as he listened to Amelia and Liam speak. Their words cut deeper than any punishment, a reminder of everything he had lost. Not just money or power, but his family, his dignity, and his purpose. As the applause rang out, Victor's knees buckled, and he collapsed onto the sidewalk. Sobs racked his body as he whispered to himself, "I'm sorry, Margaret. I'm so sorry." In his mind, Margaret's voice echoed, calm but resolute, "In the end, love creates, greed destroys." I'm glad you made it to the end. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please go ahead and generously hit that like button and subscribe for more captivating tales like this. We'd love to hear from you. What lessons have you learned from this story? Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next story.